Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and today I'd like to talk about boundaries and having healthy boundaries. Why is it essential to have healthy boundaries, to have a healthier concept of the self and others, and what happens when we are not able to negotiate on those healthy boundaries? What do we understand when we talk about boundaries? One is the physical boundary and the other can be mental and emotional boundary. Now the physical boundaries are the very obvious one wherein one thing ends and the other begins. Exactly like the chair or the table. The chair is placed where the table ends, or the chair begins when the table ends. Exactly like the neighbor's house. The neighbor's house begins when your house's boundaries ends. Or it can also be a shared common boundary, but that boundary still establishes where your house begins and where one house ends. And just like those physical boundaries, we even need to establish our emotional and our mental boundaries. Now, boundaries over here are not limitations, but they are those aspects which help you negotiate your negotiables and your non-negotiables. Healthy boundaries are also not rigid, they are negotiable, and that is why they always need to be revisited for you to establish once again your negotiables and non-negotiables, and then to be able to communicate the same with those whom you interact with. And since change is the only constant which helps in growth and evolution, we are also in the process of the same. We are the embodiment of that change which is constant, which is consistent, because it enables us grow and evolve. And since that is happening constantly and continuously and consistently, we also need to reevaluate our boundaries constantly and consistently, which kind of establishes that we need to reflect on ourselves. We need to meditate on ourselves quite consistently and consciously. So why does establishing boundaries sound so hard? Why does it feel so uncomfortable? Because like we all know that we are the only animal species, the only mammals who are dependent on their caretakers for the longest time possible for our basic survival, which entails that we have to adhere to somebody else's norms, which entails that we've got to comply our true essence to fit into the norms that are prevalent at that point in time. Also being social creatures, and most of us functioning on very dependent or codependent relationships, almost enmeshed kind of relationships. We're conditioned to believe that having boundaries is rude, is very selfish. And since we get conditioned that way for the longest time in our life, we kind of learn to comply out of obedience and not stand up for ourselves, not even express our needs, to the extent that we start rejecting our own selves, to the extent that we probably stop trusting our own selves because we've never known how to meet our own needs. We've not even known how to even address our own needs, tell somebody else that this is what we need from them. It also goes the other way around. Since we have been indoctrinated to believe that being nice is not standing for yourself, we kind of get into this overgiving, overdoing, overextending our own selves. And then gradually with time, we get so adept at not addressing our own needs and finding ourselves thinning out to the extent that we may start resenting the other person, to the extent that we eventually may start holding resentments even for ourselves. Many of us also grew up in environments wherein confrontation was looked at as a negative thing, wherein speaking for yourself, addressing your own needs, voicing your own opinion was looked down upon, was frowned upon, maybe was even punished. And invariably, gradually with time, we learned to push aside ourselves. We learned to disregard our own selves. We learned to stop trusting our own selves, our own emotions, our own thoughts. Doubting our own selves became our second skin. I think as history kind of replays itself again, with the situations that have been recently developing around the world. When physical boundaries are violated, when physical boundaries are invaded, it's just not the physical boundaries that get violated. It's the emotional and the mental boundaries that also get violated. So the violations that happen on the outside, on even the physical boundaries, leave their imprint on the inside, and then the inside even gets showcased on the outside. So in order to establish healthier relationships, not only with ourselves but also with others, not only to acknowledge our own needs but also the needs of the others, to show up more authentically, more honestly for ourselves and the others, let's try and establish healthier boundaries, healthier negotiables and non-negotiables with ourselves and the others. Let's constantly and consistently revisit them, for even they evolve as we evolve. Let's try and think a little more about that, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contents of my videos, please do like, share and subscribe.